What? I ain't even ashamed. God. I'll explain in a minute. There's something specific that really got me. It's right at the end, too. Got a new background. Tell me what you think of it. Today we are covering Season 7, Episode 13, The Perfect Pair. This is the episode in which we have William Shatner and Felicia Day guest starring, along with two other people we'll talk about later. Basically, this is just circling back. This is backstory. This is learning about Applejack, Big Mac, and Apple Bloom's parents. Now, it's been kind of, sort of, not really, barely, sort of, maybe, kind of confirmed on camera that they're dead. They've been dead for a while. That has actually been confirmed in interviews, but this made it nice and clear. Yeah, no, they are dead. They're past. I rather like Pear Jam myself. Interesting thing. They had to raise Shatner's voice electronically, through processing, which I mentioned because it amuses me. Because the other Star Trek actor, John Delancey, who plays Discord, they raise his voice too. Because at this point, when they were recording the lines, their voices are really low. And yeah, I've said this before, opinion confirmed. William Shatner is a good voice actor. He's actually a better voice actor than he is an actor. This has occurred to me before, because I've seen him voice act in several things before. But what really codified that for me was actually a video game called Star Trek Legacy. The only story positive I gave to Star Trek Legacy was for William Shatner's voice acting. Because amidst all... And they actually brought back, like, Patrick Stewart and Scott Bakula and a few other things. Oh yeah, that game was garbage. But of all the people they brought back, the only one who did a really good job with his role was William Shatner, who somehow nailed it. It was bizarre. In the middle of just bad voice acting, bad storytelling, and bad gameplay, all of a sudden there was just this awesome bit of William Shatner just nailing his lines and just suddenly selling me with the moment. It had to get a positive. It was surprising. Oh, but no, Shatner's a good voice actor. He does a good job with this. He actually manages to hit quite a few emotional points throughout the course of this episode. But we'll get to that in a minute. Also, did I think he was decent in TAS? Actually, yes. Although he's not the only one. The other one who really did a good job of voice acting in the animated series is not Leonard Nimoy, who is a good voice actor, but actually... Oh god, I suddenly can't think of his name. James Doohan, who is also a pretty good voice actor. But yeah, he actually sounds different in the flashbacks too. They do some good work with him. He's great stuff here. I'll get to the other thing in a moment. But first, I'd make fun of them breaking a floorboard to bury the jam, but people do tend to not think straight when panicked. Also, if you think about this is a really effective cold open. It immediately prompts all sorts of questions because this is so simple. I hate to point this out, but this is brilliant cinematography, is what this is. Hey, I brought a thing. Oh my god, you brought a thing? Character immediately looks over towards another character who is on approach. Character immediately gets shocked. Oh gosh, no, we've got to hide it. And immediately starts trying to hide it, right? All of that is just, it's visual shorthand, and it's really basic stuff, but it is good. And I feel the need to point this kind of thing out when I see it. That is good visual storytelling right there. Just bam, bam, bam. Immediately, we know everything we need to know about the premise in seconds. So, I'm glad you like it. We're trying out a new one. I've actually got two. The other one's some more drone footage, but this one we're trying out. We'll see what we think of it. Anyways, yeah. By the way, I love Pear Jam. In fact, I love Pear Jam so much, and I meant to do this and I didn't. I'm adding it to my grocery list right now because I'm going to go grocery shopping later today, and I am totally going to see if they have Pear Jam. That's not a joke. Pear Jam. Because hell yeah. Anyways. So, rivalry. This is actually quiet. Who wrote this? I didn't even look it up. Who wrote this episode? Hang on. A little bit. Give me a second. Give me a second. This is written by Joanna Lewis and Christina Sonka. Okay, hang on. Where's my spreadsheet? I know that duo. They've given us a few episodes. There they are. Yes, they're another one of those gamut. They've given us greens, they've given us oranges, they've given us purples, excuse me. They give us a royal problem. And they've given us reds. This one's probably purple, by the way. Anyways, we'll debate that when we get there. All right. So, lots of well-written... How do I phrase this? There's a lot of stuff they don't show, or I'm saying that wrong. They do a lot of negative space storytelling in this episode. Why did the rivalry start? Why is there a rivalry between the apples and the pears? Now you're probably thinking, I don't know, because they didn't say. Bingo. It doesn't matter. The very structure and presentation of how this episode is presented makes that point clear, that the rivalry didn't matter. It was when the rivalry was taken too far that it interjects with the main plot's narrative. I'm going to skip ahead of my notes a little bit here. We start showing a few things where there's the two, they're looking at each other and blah, blah, blah. And they're showcasing the rivalry. And what's interesting is that, so Applejack, Big Mac know there's a rivalry, but they don't know why. And there's no pairs we've really seen in the area because they moved over to Vancouver. Haha, by the way. And the rivalry wasn't really shown as being all that terrible, except for one scene where they bothered to show the consequences of the rivalry. It's the first scene where they show the rivalry. Again, brilliant visual storytelling. What do we see? We see two people who've got stalls. Now, what happens here? We have customer going to both stalls. Forgive me for getting excited about this, but this is not only brilliant, but this is immediately relevant, because just today during Lore Week, I talked about WoW versus Final Fantasy XIV. WoW and Final Fantasy XIV are not competitors. People can, and do, play both. And what do we see right at the beginning? People going to both stalls, buying both Apple and Pear products. And then they start yelling and making fun of each other and mocking each other. And what's the next thing we see? Customers walking away from both looking uncomfortable. Bam! That is brilliant storytelling. I'm sorry for gushing, but that is brilliant the way they showcase that. Because again, that makes the point clear through negative space. They don't show why the rivalry exists. They don't show the point or purpose of the rivalry. They show the consequences of the rivalry. Brilliant. So let's rewind a second. Let's get back to my notes. Sorry. You got me off topic there. Or rather, on topic. Skipping topic? So, Goldie Delicious is there. She's still amusing. There's a bit where they're like, hey, there's a feud. They were a feuding and a fighting. And there's a side note where Apple Bloom says, maybe we could fix the feud. Maybe the feud was a mistake and we could fix it. First of all, the Hookfields and the McCults were basically that, right? And of course, Apple Bloom would know that story and want to apply that. But B, that's just kind of the Cutie Mark Crusaders thing. And also C, that's just kind of Ponyville's thing. Of course, someone from Ponyville would be like, oh yeah, no, we could totally make that work. And I was going to point this out too, I want you to pay attention to this episode. I want you to rewatch this episode sometime when you have the time. And I want you to go through this episode with a fine-tooth comb. I'm building to a point here. I'm not going to go into it right now. You're not going to make me sequence break again. But when they bring that up, when Apple Bloom says, hey, we could fix it, Goldie Delicious's tone drops almost half an octave in order to do like this. And if you've never heard that, what that is that's someone getting serious, like I just did just there. Remember that. So we go into our first flashback, and first continuity counter. There are going to be 2 for this episode. The Mare in the Moon is in the flashback. Credit to the animation department. Where's my counters? Here they are. I'm just going to go ahead and put both continuity counters here so I don't forget, but there's another one we'll get to later. So, love that. But remember that. That's 2 things I want you to remember now. You remembering them? Now allow me to give an opinion. Rivalries are a good thing. Within reason. It's true, Sierra Mike. It's true. If you're like, hey, everything's great and awesome, but you need to do this. You know that things have gotten serious, right? My sister knows me well enough that she knows how I use my voice. Because remember, everything that I do with my voice is deliberate. It's all planned. Because otherwise my voice just comes out monotone, right? I've talked about that before. So she knows how to know exactly what I'm feeling or thinking, whether I say it or not, because she knows my voice usage just perfectly well. And she's called me on that several times, and I'm like... Anyways, rivalries, good things. And I mean that. A good rivalry makes both entities try harder. A good rivalry gives you can be enjoyable. Oh, I lost this match, but next time. Right? Or if I win, that's enjoyable. It's competition. Now, MLP has already covered this, so I'm not going to cover this topic too much. You remember Rainbow and Applejack all the way back in season 1 or 2. I forget which it is. But you remember that episode where they had to run and Rainbow took it too far and started cheating? It was a good competition. It was a good rivalry until they took it too far. Once again, the WoW and FF14 parallel comes up, but someone in chat, who said that? It was Ross. Makes a great comparison. The WWF and the WCW. The best, I'm sorry, my opinion, the best wrestling we've ever had was when those two were doing this. You remember when Hogan turned heel? You remember that? And they had, what do they call it? There was like the Crew. And they went to the other stadium. You remember that? That was awesome. The NWO, the New World Order. Yep. That was awesome. I actually admit I got into wrestling way before that because Andre the Giant is who actually got me into wrestling way back in the day. That's dating me a little bit, but you know. Point being, rivalry can be a good thing. And the episode once again shows how much the rivalry shouldn't be because of the fact that it's going too far. Again, that it's not the fact that they're pushing each other, it's the fact that they're actively antagonistic towards each other. And this is causing problems. The whole episode does this. I've already made my point clear. This is when I was going to bring up the stall thing. But the whole episode does this periodically. Now, this is when Felicia Day shows up. I'll go ahead and admit, I didn't know that was Felicia Day. She's an okay actress. I intend no insult. In fact, I actually rather like Felicia Day. But I've heard better voice actresses before. And I feel like too many games, Dragon Age 2, New Vegas, lean a little bit too much on the we have a celebrity as a voice actress thing. That being said, she is an excellent singer. But I'll come to that in a minute. So, Pear Butter shows up, aka Buttercup, and we have Bill Newton voicing Bright Mac. This is kind of an interesting thing. He did a good job, I think. And this is usually when I point out, you know, the kind of things he's voiced. Bill Newton is actually really new to voice acting. He only started voice acting about 6 or 7 years ago, which is extremely new to voice acting. He apparently does quite a few voices in Season 7. He plays Stygian. That's all I'm going to say about that. He also did some voices for Dragalia Lost, which is a mobile game, and the Ninjago series, if you're familiar with that. So he's new to the scene, but he's got some talent. I think he'll go places. Yeah, he voices Stygian. Uh-huh. Again, that's all I'm going to say for right now. We'll come back. We'll circle back to that in a few weeks here. But then it's like, wait, we're half Pear? What? Cut to commercial break. That actually got a laugh out of me, so I'll give you that one. As I've said before, commercial breaks, the whole, you know, dun-dun-dun thing usually pisses me off. If you do something with it, I'm okay with it. And that's what they do here. They turn it into a joke. Like, because what they're doing is they're hearing a dun-dun-dun for a story that happened like 20 years ago, right? Or 30 years ago, whatever it is. Anyways. And it's clearly being played up for laughs. Now I noticed, S.A. Ross. I'm going to go ahead and be sappy for just a second. I do believe, for lack of a better way to phrase that, in true love. I do. Romantic love, I should be more clarifying about that. I've seen it before. In real life, I have seen couples who are actually in love. And I do think that's a real thing. I think it's obvious why most people don't encounter that. It's just basic math, if we're being honest with ourselves. Most people are desperate to not be alone, or will settle for someone because they don't think they can wait or should wait for someone. And so people settle rather than sticking with someone who would actually fit for them. But I do believe there is such a concept as people who match each other. Tetris, that's a great way to put that, Pear. People who Tetris with each other. And I do think that's a thing in real life. The catch is finding that person, right? Because there's a couple billion people running around. But the reason I bring this up is because this episode does a surprisingly good job of portraying that. The way they phrase it, I wrote this down. They had a magical, star-kissed, other side of the rainbow love. Again, I have seen that before. I actually agree with you, Savicom. Me and Sis are a perfect example of that. When we met, for those of you not aware, my sister and I are not biologically related. We only met about 11 years ago now. But that was a complete Tetris situation. Do you mind if I tell that story just real quick? Just because it's on my mind. We were playing WoW. So this was during BC, Burning Crusade, the first expansion for World of Warcraft. And I ran a raid team. Me and Gary ran a raid team. I should give joint credit. And we really wanted this one guy to raid with us. He was a good raider. He was a good person. He was a good fit for our team. And he was a cool dude, right? And so we were like, hey, we really want this guy in. Now, his brother was this other dude. And so Good Raider, whose name I don't even remember, recommended we pull in Herzlos, which was not Good Raider, in the interim. Herzlos was terrible at his job. He was a cool dude. I liked him as a person. But he was awful as a mage. He played a mage. And just terrible. Like, he was the worst kind of raider. But we put up with him because we wanted to get in good with his brother. Sis was dating Herzlos at the time. One time, there's this thing where hers had to go. We needed a 10th person, and I remember the specific fight too. It's the Satyr in Karazhan. I can't remember his name, but it's the Satyr boss, if you remember who that is. So we're fighting him, and I'm like, well, we really need this. We really need our 10th. We need the extra DPS. We don't have the DPS for this fight. And Herzlos is like, I'm sorry, I just can't do it. And I like, Sis in the background says something, I forget what. And Gary's like, hey, she could do it. What? And I'm like, no, yeah, no, that's fine. And so she sits down. She's never played WoW before in her life, by the way. She's watched Herzlos play it, but she's never played it. She was, at the time, we all knew her as Herz's GF. That was actually her title at the time. And so she sat down and started playing WoW, and started playing Herzlos in this raid fight, and did a better job than him. And, yeah, Ilhoof, that's him, Ilhoof. And, that's how I met my sister. But yeah, we clicked immediately because I was the raid leader, and that meant I needed to, for those of you who don't know how that works, that means if you're going to be raid leader in an MMO like WoW or FF14, you need to know every job, so you can help the other raiders with what they need to do with the fight, right? So, guess who was the person who was communicating with Sis in order to help her to raid and to play as a mage? So yeah, we started talking immediately, and yeah, it was just like that. Without hesitation, it was just an instantaneous click, you know? Then one day she decided to come visit me in person out of absolutely nowhere because she was crazy and took a chance that I wasn't crazy. Anyways, enough stories. Point being, I have seen these kind of Tetrisings happen in real life. I've seen them happen to me. Non-romantic, obvious, but point being. And so one of the things that they do really well here is three. They do three really good things with the relationship between Buttercup and Bright Mac. Thing number one, they do show them as being really into each other, for lack of a better way to put it. Thing number two, they show as the two have really good chemistry, as I like to say it. The two play with each other and off of each other very well. The third thing, this is the biggest one. This is the one most writers completely fail at. They're friends. They joke and laugh and play, and they just kind of have fun, regardless of mwah, mwah. It is astonishing how many writers skip this step right here. Oh yeah, they also compete. That's part of step 2, really. But yeah, it is amazing how much people tend to think, oh yeah, sorry, this is actually something I was going to talk about later, but I guess I'll mention it now since Savicom just brought it up. They are also rivals. Catch that? Because that's brilliant. They're rivals. One of my favorite rivalries that they show, or aspects of their rivalry, I should say, is there's this bit, where is it? He goes out of his way to go... They're rivals to the core. He goes out of his way to get her a gift for a silly, stupid anniversary no one would ever keep track of. And as he's like, oh, I know you'd never get me a gift. And he gives this little grin like, haha, I beat you. And then her response is, well, actually, not only did I remember this stupid, ridiculous anniversary that no one would ever remember, but I totally got you a better gift already. I'm sorry, but that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant the way they show that. Anyways, so she did get him a good thing. All right, so hang on. So I'm looking at my notes. We have another commercial break. Oh, we're half Pear. They have the first flashback. Obvious connections between Big Mac and Applejack. The hat, the strength, the honesty, the infatuation. I swear they pretty much copy-pasted the way Big Mac looked at, I don't remember her name, the baker in our town, when they did Bright Mac looking at Buttercup. Too many names to keep track of here. Too many names. Sugar Belle. Thank you, Sugar Belle. I don't know why I said that like that. Also, am I the only one who's noticing that Big Mac is kind of following the same character arc that Granny Smith kind of has been following? And by kind of has, I mean already has. Let me walk this back, because I should explain myself. You remember season 1, where Granny Smith was a one-note character who barely talked? I've noticed that they've been doing more and more stuff. Pretty much every time Big Mac has screen time, he's been talking more, and they've been using him better. And that's why I say it's the same thing they did with Granny Smith. Because she was just a one-note cameo character who didn't mean anything, and she slowly became a character over time. I pointed that out through these Streaminations. So then we go to Miss Cake. This is when Buttercup mentions her connection to the CMC, or rather vice versa, aka helping people figure out what they're into and helping people figure out who and how they are. What's funny, yeah, chiffon swirl. What's funny is that is also a real life skill, real life applicable. Knowing people, knowing proper psychology, that's a real life skill that is extremely applicable in a huge amount of situations. To be a proper manager, or to be a proper career counselor, or to be a proper therapist, all just to name 3 right off the top of my head, all require that skill. Oh yeah, then Burnt Oak's there. He's cool. There's a great scene where Big Mac comes back, like, can we learn more? And Burnt Oak is tearing up a little bit. So that's 3 things I want you to remember so far. Anyways. Love it. Love the way that that's presented. So then the anniversary thing, I've actually already talked about that. Then we scroll down a little bit. This is when we get to the song. So let's we've been doing this a little bit out of order. This is when we get back to the song. Again, Felicia Day actually sang that song and did a really good job of it. Absolute credit to that. I'm going to go ahead and be sappy for the second time today. I actually really like the idea of a story of 2 people who, let's be clear about this, actually love each other, are actually good together, actually Tetris together, and nobody else really is on board with that. Now you're probably thinking, oh, that's a Romeo and Juliet story, right? So, yes, but no. The problem here is that anybody who's actually studied or analyzed Romeo and Juliet, which I did, we had to do that in school, I'm sure, knows that that story is no, that's not a love story. Romeo and Juliet is not a love story. Yeah, it is a cautionary tale that's done in a humorous parody. No, that's the wrong word. Mockery, I guess. I'm not sure what word to use here. There's actually an official word for this, but anyways, whatever. Point being, Romeo and Juliet is not a love story. Satirical, thank you, satirical. That being stated, I have to admit that language does as language does. Like, I don't want to be one of those technically people. I acknowledge that a Romeo and Juliet story is a story about two star-crossed lovers who love each other and their families don't like each other. And that's what that trope means. Divorced from the actual Romeo and Juliet story. I mean, we don't care about where Christmas came from, right? To use another example of this. And there's other examples, too, I could use, where language is used technically incorrectly, but because language is an evolving and adapting thing, language means different things over time. So, that little proviso out of the way, I do like a good Romeo and Juliet story. The catch is, the overwhelming majority of Romeo and Juliet stories end in either tragedy or involve two people who, it doesn't work out, right? Like, it's infatuation, or it's puppy love, or whatever. It's not real. So it's actually really... It's really heartwarming, for lack of a better way to put it, to see a Romeo and Juliet story where they actually love each other, and they actually end up together. A happy ending, for lack of a better way to put it. And no, I don't, Savacom. Or if I do, I have no idea where it is. I mean, there is a tragedy here, but we're not at that part yet. This is also in my notes where I mentioned how friendly they are and how their rivalry is and how they complete each other. S.A. Ross actually already got to this. But there's a bit where she's pulling weeds, and then without saying anything, it just cuts to him having fallen asleep, helping her pull weeds. So, wait a minute. They're moving? Okay, you got me again. Second laugh. This is funny, then. So what ends up happening is Bright Mac asks Pear Butter to marry him. What's interesting about this is Burnt Oak and Swirl Chiffon, Miss Cake, are both there. Now, obviously they're there. They've been kind of in on this the whole time. But the reason I say that's funny is because that's legal. I don't know if that's on purpose, but even if you do a private wedding ceremony, you need two witnesses. At least here in the States. I'm not sure how many other countries that's true in. So they serve as witnesses to validate that the legal binding actually happened. Funny little tidbit there. So... this is when we mentioned the other. This is when we mentioned the other Continuity Plus that I've already put up there. Mayor's hair is pink. How many of you even remember that? Obviously, I'll raise my hand because I jotted it down, but... Yep, Ponyville Confidential. Way back, it was the episode where the Cutie Mark Crusaders were getting dirt on people. And one of their stories was, oh my gosh, Mayor dyes her hair gray. And there's a picture of Mayor with a pink mane, and she's in the middle of dyeing it gray. And the moment I saw that, I was like, ah. And that is why I've been asking you to remember all these details as we've been going through. The weed pulling, and the Mayor and the Moon, and I don't remember all of them right now, but all the details that I've been pointing out throughout this Streamination are polish. I've talked about polish a lot lately. I've talked about polish today when I was talking about WoW. Polish is what separates good from great. And this is why My Little Pony is a great show. is because they do these kind of little details, because they have this level of polish, and because they put this kind of extra work into making it awesome, as opposed to merely making it good. It is surprisingly easy to make something good. Really, it is. There are formulas. There are... you got a problem, Pear Start? It's a YouTube video. What do you want? Here, look. See, it's YouTube. There's... If it really bothers you, I can get rid of it. I'm just trying something new out. That level, it's... People, historically, are fine with things that are good. People, it's the Snickers analogy. I've used this analogy before, recently even. Snickers, there's nothing wrong with a Snickers, really. A Snickers is a good candy bar. But a Snickers will never compare to someone who sits down and pours their heart and soul into making a specific batch of fudge or pie or cookies or whatever. That dessert that they pour their heart and soul into, that they really push that extra effort to do, is going to be better than a Snickers bar. Assuming they actually know what they're doing in the kitchen, obviously. But you get my point. You get where I'm going with this analogy. Yeah, it is a cliche to say it's made with love, but that is something that is a demonstrable magnifier of quality. When it comes to food, when it comes to television, when it comes to music, when it comes to painting, when it comes to making something on a lathe, like wood carving. This is the kind of thing that is a fact of life. And I wanted to point that out because there is a tremendous amount of polish in this episode. And that is why WoW, right now, Shadowlands, is a good MMO. But it is not a great one. Now, nobody who watches me is going to get that, because that's crossing over between Lore Week, WoW Story, and, MLP. Nobody watches both of these things. But it's still, I'm making my point rather thoroughly. It's just nobody's going to get that. Anyways. This then leads to an interesting scene. One more little bit of details here. Are you making me choose between families? Oh, yes, I am. Now, notice he hesitates a second before he says that. And he's got a weird expression on his face. We'll talk about it in just a moment. And she hesitates for a moment, and then she starts to cry, and she says, well, then I guess I've chosen. And his response is to shake very subtly. I wouldn't even be surprised if you didn't even notice it. It's just like a quick vibration, like someone just poked him. And the very beginnings of tears are there. And then finally he says, fine. And again, credit to Shatner. Because Shatner I didn't do it right just now, but Shatner pushes all the emotions that are going through Grandpa Pear's voice in that moment. Yeah, once again, we are back to consequences. The rivalry has been pushed too far. And he is hurt. Now, I'm not dismissing or saying what he did was acceptable or right, but it is understandable. Because he's not thinking straight right now. He is very wounded because what he just heard is, I don't want to be your daughter anymore. Now, that's not what she said, but that is what he heard. And it's very clearly showcased. And what do we do when we're hurt? We cover it with anger. Anger is the easiest emotional defense that exists. It blankets everything. So he lashes out and rushes off. And again, God, just credit to the animation, credit to the voice acting. Granny Smith, who has been kind of right there with this whole rivalry this whole time, this is a line for her, and she's just... And she comes up to comfort Buttercup. She's like, oh, God. Hang on, I'm going to get to that in a second, Ross. So Granny is shocked by this. And it's just like, I'm so sorry. And you'll notice that is a dam breaking. This is, I don't know how else to call that. I've seen this so many times in real life, where someone's angry or upset or hurt, and then something just breaks the dam and all of it is gone. And immediately, instantly, and unhesitatingly, that person switches from being so upset to, oh my god, I'm so sorry. I'm sure you've seen that before. Possibly even for yourself or someone you yourself have been, in an argument with. And that is exactly what Granny Smith goes. Once that line is crossed and once that dam is broken, all of the rivalry is thrown right out the window, as all she can think of is to comfort that poor girl. Oh, I'm so sorry. When we come back to the present from that, when we come back to the present, Apple Bloom is hugging on Big Mac. She's just like, as she's listening to the story, and Big Mac's just got one old arm around her. Oh, absolutely, Savacom. I guarantee you the reason Granny Smith hasn't talked about this before is that that's a wound that she probably could have talked about if they were still alive. I mentioned earlier that one of the things that this episode does so well in terms of writing is it tells through negative space. This is so brilliant because the story that they don't tell you is right there on the camera. I never should have left, is what Shatner says in the perfect tone. Hurt pushed him to anger. Anger pushed him away. It's easy to stay away when you're angry. When you've got that anger there, it's not a constant thing, but it's just in the back of your mind. You haven't forgiven them. You don't really want to see them. You're comfortable not seeing them, right? I bet a lot of you, in fact, I bet all of you know what I mean by that. But then they died. Now that is a gap of years, it's worth noting. But he was comfortable with that anger for a long time. But when his daughter died, in whatever circumstance happened, again, it doesn't matter. Just like the reason for the rivalry, only the consequences matter. So it doesn't matter why they died or how. Only the consequences of that death. This is why it has taken him close to 20, 30, however long it's been years to finally come back. Because his daughter is dead. And the last thing he said to her was disowning her. If I need to further elaborate on why he would stay away because of that, I got nothing. That, by the way, is what made me cry. This is what actually pulled tears out of me. Was this realization in this moment. There's no going back at that point. You can't go back and reconcile. There's no one to reconcile with. You can't make it better. Because it's terminated. The story's ended. Book closed. Done. I can even bring this down to something a little bit more relatable. Excuse me. Oh yeah, Shatner just nails this so hard. He really does. He really nails the tone. Like I said, he is a great voice actor. How many of you have ever had someone reach out to you with a letter, or a text, or a phone call, or an email, and you've thought, oh, I'll get back to them in a minute, and then it's actually been like 3 or 4 days, or 5 days, or a week, and then you're thinking, oh, well, I can't respond now, it's been so long. Now it would be awkward, now it would be worse. Oh, I'm just going to continue to not respond. How many of you have ever been through that? Now, I'm not going to raise my hand on that one, but I've seen this in a lot of people. Email especially, specifically. Now, I bring this up because that is exactly what Grandpa Pear is going through, but worse in every way. Because it's not just responding to an email or responding to a call. His daughter's dead. It is too late. Except it's not, because that's how that works. It doesn't work that way. I understand, it's an anxiety thing, it's a hesitation thing, but it actually doesn't work that way. If he had come back Even when he found out that she had died, I guarantee you, with 100% certainty, he would have been embraced. Just like he is in this episode. But he couldn't. How could he? You get my point here? Even though what he did was incorrect, it is 100% understandable why he did it. And once again, this is why this show in general is so damned human. Final note. This is all I got to say. Final note before we rate this episode. You know how I've talked before about how television ratings are basically a lie. So, you know, kind of a grain of salt as to how much you care about television ratings. Okay, you with me so far? Cool. Having gotten that proviso out, this is the highest rated show of the episode of the entire show. Water. No. Yeah, no, this apparently got insane viewing figures. And this is a damned good episode. Would anyone like to argue? Legitimate question. To argue this down from purple. I'll listen to the arguments. I always do. I mean, if even Ogre likes it, we probably have a good episode. This is, if I might be so bold, I've said that 3 times today. This is something I love about my job, really. Something I love about doing analysis mode. Obviously, sometimes things don't hold up. Actually, that happens a lot, if I'm being honest. Most of the time, things descend, in my opinion, when going through with analysis mode. But every now and again, going through with a work with analysis mode elevates it, makes me enjoy it even more, makes me appreciate it even more. And that right there is exactly why I like doing analysis mode when it comes to games and movies and shows. So, based on consensus, I think we will go ahead and give a purple rating. Which means that the Lewis and Sanko duo have 2 purple episodes to their name now. Not too shabby. Let's see. Haber has that beaten. McCarthy has that beaten. Larson absolutely beat that. I just absolutely smashed it. That hasn't come out yet, some scary guy. I don't even know much about it other than that it's not out yet. Oh yeah, Larson is... Hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Larson has 7 purples. I don't think that's getting beaten. I think he's just going to sit on that throne, and that's the end of that. McCarthy has 3. Haber has 2. Scott Sonneborn has 2. And the duo have 2. And a few other people have 1. So... so the next episode that we're covering is the one I know nothing about. Hang on, if I can find this here. Fame and Misfortune. I shouldn't say nothing. That's not actually true. I'm not going to ban someone for not liking something, Darth Medoro. That's not how that works. If that was true, I'd ban half my audience. There are ads up there. That's so weird. Where is... Yeah, S.A. Ross doesn't like Worf or Klingons in general. Klingons are easily my favorite race in Star Trek because there's just so much depth and layers and wonderful, awesome politics and culture there, right? And S.A. Ross hates them, you know? Ogre, let me use another example. I love the interpersonal politics of social currency, right? And stuff like that. Ogre hates that crap. You know? I don't know. We like differing opinions here. But I need to figure out who wrote this episode. Vulcans are alright, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I think Vulcans are okay, but they're even better if they're Romulans. Oh, I should probably cut off the local report.